Okay, awesome. So hi everyone, welcome. My name is Cecilia Hinojosa. I guess we should get started because it's already 2:03. So I want to thank you all for coming here today for the Ford Foundation information session and panel. So we'll be having mentors of successful Ford applicants here, as well as successful Ford applicants themselves, to answer any questions you may have regarding the process of applying to the Ford, as well as any of the application materials of the Ford Foundation Fellowship. So let's start with introductions. My name is Dr. Cecilia Hinojosa. I am recently received my PhD in experimental psychology here at Tufts. And during my time as a graduate student, I was awarded a 2018 predoctoral Ford Fellowship that funded me for the last 3 years of my graduate studies. I would also like to introduce the individuals who made this workshop possible. So first we have Jackie DeJean, who's the Assistant Dean of Research, Assistant Dean of Diversity and Inclusion for the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Donna Tyson, who's the Director of the Office of Corporate and Foundation Relations for the School of Arts and Sciences. And for the woman behind the scenes who makes all these workshops possible and is doing something else too, so she makes a million other things possible as well as at Tufts, Angela Foss. She's the Associate Director of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. So I want to ask that if we have questions, we save them for the panel itself. But if there's any clarifying questions you need me to answer on a specific slide, you can go ahead and put the question in the chat. Okay, so let's start off with what is the Ford Foundation. So through its program of fellowships, the Ford Foundation seeks to increase the diversity of the nation's college and university faculties by increasing their ethnic and racial diversity, maximizing the educational benefits of diversity, and increasing the number of professors who can and will use diversity as a resource for enriching the education of all students. And so there are many programs the Ford Foundation has many fellowships a part of its program, so I'll be talking about 3 of them. The first one is the Predoctoral Ford Fellowship, which I was awarded in 2018. The second is the Dissertation Fellowship, and the last is the Postdoc Fellowship. So we'll go in depth of each of these in the following slides. So some of us might have questions of why it would be beneficial to apply for the Ford Foundation Fellowship. So of course, one of those reasons is because you'll be receiving a stipend. So stipend levels vary depending on the level of fellowship you receive. So we'll discuss, again, each level in depth in the following slides. But in my case, the stipend I received from the Ford Predoctoral Fellowship actually provided me with more money than I was receiving if I was going to continue receiving funds as a teaching assistant. So also in receiving funds through the Ford Fellowship, I was able to no longer have to TA. So I didn't have to TA anymore, but for some programs, you do have to TA in order to graduate from the program. However, for psychology, I was totally fine with stepping down from that position as soon as I got my fellowship. Secondly, there is a conference of Ford Fellows. And as a Ford Fellow, you are invited to the conference, all expenses paid, for your first funded year. And you are allowed to go once more if there is funding available to you. And so the last conference I went to was in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So besides the great areas that you can explore from the conference, it is also a great opportunity for networking. So for example, the 2 Ford Fellows that we have on the panel today have become really great colleagues of mine, and we met during our time at the Ford conference. I was also able to take advantage of one-on-one mentoring that I received through a senior Ford Fellow who's actually from my undergraduate institution. So I was able to meet with this individual, and we talked about not only back home, because he's also a native El Pasoan. So I did my undergraduate at the University of Texas at El Paso. But we also talked about my career path and how I wanted to go back to El Paso to become a professor. So that was really nice to be able to meet with him. The conference is also a great place to present your work. So you're able to also present oral or a poster presentation, and you can receive feedback and critiques from individuals from various fields, not just your own field. There's also many great workshops that you can attend that have to include with career advancement or how to publish. So if you want to take advantage of that, that would be great at the conference itself. Next, there are regional liaisons, which are a network of supportive senior Ford Fellows. So the New England area actually has 2 regional liaisons. One's at Harvard and the other one is at MIT. So if I ever had a problem, if I ever had questions or concerns regarding my doctoral studies, I would have been able to reach out to them and ask them if they could help me with any situation that I was in need of. So this is a benefit of being a part of the Ford Fellowship community. Also, once you are a Ford Fellow, your name will be added to an email listserv where you will receive emails daily from other Ford Fellows. So topics of these emails include new books that are published by Ford Fellows, promotions by other Ford Fellows, as well as postdoc opportunities that you may not know about, and faculty positions available. You will also be added to a directory of Ford Fellows, which is where you can look up specific Ford Fellows by institution. And this is how I learned that Tufts University in particular only has 3 individuals who have ever received a Ford Fellowship, myself being one of them. So because of that, I thought that having this workshop would be extremely beneficial to get the word out about the Ford Foundation Fellowships. And lastly, the Ford Foundation Fellowship programs are extremely competitive. They're one of the most competitive academic fellowships that you can apply to. They have a less than 5% acceptance rate. So having, Ford Fellow being on your CV looks pretty good. So now that we've talked about all of the benefits of being a Ford Fellow, we can discuss the application requirements for the fellowship. So this slide is basically just an overview, but I'll be going in depth for each part of the application process throughout this session. So you'll need to include eligibility and support, the field of study that you're in, a personal statement, a statement of previous research and scholarly productivity, a proposed research plan, an annotated bibliography if you're applying for a dissertation or postdoc application, a dissertation abstract, again, for the dissertation and postdoc application, and you'll have to provide supplemental materials. And so those include your transcripts, verification of doctoral degree status form, letters of recommendation, and a host letter only for the publication. The competition dates for this 2022 cycle have already been announced. So for the pre-doctoral application, the due date is December 16th. For the dissertation and postdoctoral application, December 9th is the due date. And the supplementary material for all of these applications is due January 6th, 2022. Okay, so let's talk about the general eligibility for this program. So you are generally eligible if you're a US citizen, as the list shows, national permanent residents, as well if you're in the DACA program. You should show evidence of superior academic achievements, but something that I want to point out specifically is that they ask individuals are committed to a career in teaching and research at college or university level in the US. And so I want to emphasize this point in particular because I think it's very important that if you know already that you do not want to stay in academia, that you do not apply for this fellowship because it's really for individuals who know now that they want to be in academia. So I just say that because if you were to receive the fellowship knowing that you do not want to stay in academia, then that means that one person who actually does want to stay in academia doesn't get the fellowship. So please, if you know now that you're not, wanting to stay in academia, do not apply. Of course, interest can change. You don't have to stay in academia if you really don't want to, but at this time, if you're for sure knowing that you don't want to be in academia, then I suggest you do not apply. Okay, now let's go into the specifics of each of the different kind of programs. So this is the predoctoral eligibility and support. So for this program in particular, to be eligible to apply, you may not have earned a doctoral degree at any time in any field. As of the fall 2021 semester, you have to be enrolled in an eligible research-based program that leads to a PhD or a Doctor of Science degree at a nonprofit US institution. So that's exactly what Tufts is. So everybody on the call should be good to go with this one. And you are required a minimum of 3 years of study left to complete that degree. The support for this predoctoral fellowship is $27,000 a year for the next 3 years. So last couple years, it was actually 24,000, so they've increased the stipend, which is great to hear. Next, we have the dissertation, eligibility, and support. So again, for the dissertation to be eligible, you may not have earned a doctoral degree at any time in any field. You have to, again, be enrolled in an eligible research-based dissertation required program. And by this December 2021, all departmental and institutional requirements for the degree, except for actually writing and defending the dissertation, must be completed. So you can't still need to take some classes in order to be finished with your dissertation requirements. Really, you just have to be in the writing process and be preparing for defending the dissertation. And you have to have at least a period of 9 to 12 months left during the 2022 and 2023 academic year to finish up your dissertation. The support and stipend for this is $28,000 for 1 year. Okay, and last we'll go to the postdoctoral eligibility and support. So you must have completed all the requirements for a PhD or Doctor of Science degree, including successful defense of the dissertation, no earlier than December 10th, 2014, and no later than December 10th, 2021. So that's 7 years. And an eligible research-based field from a US institution of higher education. So it can't be before 2014, but it can't be later than December 10th, 2021. So if you're in the process of completing your first or your last year of your dissertation, you would probably be ineligible to apply for the postdoc. It wouldn't be until after you are already kind of getting your footing into your postdoctoral position. The support for this is $50,000 for 1 year. So here's a list of the eligible fields that the Ford Foundation provides funding to. So as you can see, there are many, many fields, and they're very broad. So when I first learned about the Ford Foundation Fellowship, I was an undergraduate student working at as a research assistant. And in the lab, during one of our lab meetings, a graduate student had actually came up with a PowerPoint to talk about some of the graduate fellowships that an individual can apply for. And so the Ford Foundation Fellowship was one of them that I knew I could apply to because I was originally interested in applying to clinical psychology programs. And so if you're interested in clinical psych, the Ford Foundation Fellowship will allow you to apply, unlike other funding agencies. So from an early age, I kind of knew that I wanted to apply for the Ford Foundation, and that's why I really like the programs, as well as the conferences seem a little more appealing just because you're going to be interacting with individuals from all other disciplines. So it's really interesting to hear their feedback on when you present your poster or talk to understand what they did and did not understand. So let's go over some positive factors for selection. So these are the things that the reviewers are looking for in your application. So first, an evidence of superior academic achievement, degree of promise of continuing achievement as scholars and teachers, capacity to respond in pedagogically productive ways to the learning needs of students from diverse backgrounds, sustained personal engagement with communities that are underrepresented in the academy, likelihood of using the diversity of human experience as an educational resource in teaching and scholarship, membership in one or more of the groups whose representation in the American profession has been severe or longstanding. So here's a list of some of those groups. I just want to emphasize that for this application or fellowship, you do not have to belong to one of these groups to apply. So it's not like an eligibility thing. If you don't belong to one of these groups, that's fine. If you can show that you kind of check all the other boxes, then that's good. But just know that belonging to one of these groups should be included somewhere in your packet, and it is a positive factor for selection that the reviewers look for. So how will you demonstrate that you possess the factors that I just presented? Well, you'll do that through the various application materials that are asked of you. So the first and one of the most important is the personal statement. If all the applicants who are submit a fellowship application that year are fantastic, which a majority of the time they are, it will come down to your personal statement. So make sure that you take your time writing the personal statement and getting feedback on your personal statement. So for the personal statement, the reviewers want to hear about your background, community efforts, unique perspective, and why you want to create diversity in academia. This is time to explain how you will be a benefit to the organization, not how the fellowship will benefit you financially. So when I was going about writing the personal statement, I think that my personal statement was probably the strongest piece of my application for many reasons. And the first part of that is because I started strong. So this is the first sentence of my personal statement. I am a first-generation college graduate. I'm the first person in my family to seek a graduate degree, and I'm a Mexican-American woman. So in this one sentence, I listed 4 things about myself that let the reviewer know that I belong to many different underrepresented minority status groups in academia. And as I described with the positive factors, that checks off one of the boxes listed. Also, with the personal statement, you want to describe the past and ongoing service efforts that you've been a part of. So this can include tutoring and mentoring students in challenging environments, leadership and organizational skills that benefit a larger community, or participation in housing or public service projects. So the way that I did it was I listed almost like a story, the different programs that I was involved in and a part of since early on. So I started in high school. So first, I made note that I taught elementary school age students to read English and I coached volleyball. Then I discussed how I applied to specific colleges because those colleges had programs that were specific to helping diversify academia. And I also took part in programs that were specific to diversifying academia. And lastly, I described how I sought out graduate programs that were doing just the same thing, that were starting similar initiatives. So for example, I described how I chose Tufts because Tufts was spearheading programs that were trying to diversify academia. So for example, there's the BLAST program at Tufts that I talked about. I was also in my second year at Tufts. So I had participated in a variety of different programs, such as the Reverse Science Fair, where I went to go share my research with high school students. And then I came back and was able to judge high school students' research projects or science fair projects. So I made sure to include all of those things that I've been a part of. And if you haven't been a part of things since high school, it's totally fine. Just try and think of the earliest thing that you kind of started working with on service efforts, and then just kind of chronologically go from there. And also speak to things that you would like to do in the future. So for example, I said that if I was going to receive the Ford Foundation, that would allow me and give me more time to be able to seek out more outreach opportunities, which I think that they appreciated. And lastly, I ended strong. So this is the last kind of paragraph of my statement. So to conclude, although I'm a member of multiple underrepresented groups, I have learned that I am not defined by the groups I belong to, but I'm defined by my work ethic and the intellectual contributions I make. I hope that through my research, lectures, and mentoring, I will be able to show students of underrepresented populations that their background need not limit their aspirations. And so basically, I made sure to note that I am from an underrepresented minority group in academia, but I know that I'm not defined by being a member in these groups. I'm defined by what I do and how I overcame the barriers presented during my journey. And I'm also defined by the actions I take, knowing that I successfully navigated those barriers. And since I'm now in a privileged position, I feel that I am obligated and I will do all these things to open doors for others. And so that's kind of how I ended my personal statement. And I think that that marks off a majority of the other boxes that I had listed in the positive factors to consider. So in the personal statement, you can mark off a lot of those boxes, but also you can, talk about other things, other positive factors throughout other materials in your application packet. So they'll also look at the statement of previous research and scholarly productivity. So for this, you want to make sure that you're mentioning all research experiences that you've been a part of, either as classwork or in activities outside of class. For example, internships, summer research programs, etc. Explain the methods used, and for example, if you're writing a dissertation application, the dissertation progress. Include goals, results, and impacts of the research. if formal research has not been carried out yet, so for example, if you're applying for a pre-doc and you're barely going into your graduate program, just have a list of activities prepared for when you begin to start the research. And at the end of this, you'll want to include a list of publications and presentations that you have from the last 5 years. So for some individuals, the statement of previous research and scholarly productivity may be pretty, cut and dried. Seems like you knew what you wanted to do from the beginning and you kind of, focused on all your efforts to achieve that goal. But for some of us, many of us, our path to graduate school may be more of a journey that has many twists and turns. And so I challenge you all to look at these twists and turns not as challenges, but as something that you can turn into a positive. So for example, I'm a neuroscientist who uses neuroimaging techniques to study the neural correlates of post-traumatic stress disorder. I always knew I wanted to be a psychologist for individuals with PTSD ever since I was in high school. However, when I went to my undergraduate institution, there wasn't a PTSD lab that I can work in. However, I knew that in order to be competitive and to go into graduate school, you need to have research experience. And so because of that, I really applied to any kind of open research position that was available. And so what I landed was a behavioral neuroscience lab where I worked with rats to better understand nicotine addiction in diabetic rat models. And so I stayed in that lab for 3 years. So now you know that I was never interested in working with rats to begin with. I was never interested in studying nicotine addiction, but I made sure to turn this twist in the road into something beneficial in my statement of previous research. So for example, working in the field of neuroscience really opened my eyes to the possibilities that I can take and I can study in individuals with PTSD. And this ultimately guided my position to the lab that I applied to for graduate school. So even if your previous research and scholarly productivity looks a little twisty and turny, don't worry. You can always turn those things into positives. Okay, next we'll have the proposed research plan. So here you're going to want to describe your research, dissertation, or project that you're working on. You're going to include a realistic timeline to complete the plan, explain long-range career goals and how the fellowship will advance your career, and explain how proposed research relates to a larger community and society as a whole. Make sure to be concise and specific and avoid excessive jargon. I just want to mention that the reviewers who will be reviewing the applications submitted are going to be from all walks of life. So they're all going to have PhDs, but they're going to be from different fields. So when you're submitting your application, you're going to be asked to pick a couple of keywords, and based on the keywords you pick will give the reviewers a feel for what your application packet, what your research looks at. And if the reviewers think that those keywords fit in their field, they'll pick your topic or your application to review. But if they think that it's outside their scope, then they'll have another reviewer take the application. So although it may be in your field, so for example, psychology is a pretty broad realm. So someone who's a psychologist could have looked at my application, however, they're not like a neuroimager. So I have to make sure that I don't use any excessive jargon so that a person who is in the relative field area that I'm in can understand what it is I'm prepared to research. So this is the annotated bibliography, which is only for dissertation and postdoc applicants. You have to demonstrate where your work fits in the field, show that you are talking about your work and that you can contextualize it within a broader landscape. So basically what you're going to do is choose 10 primary and secondary sources that are relevant to your work and begin with the primary sources and how those sources inform your work. So you're going to write 2 to 4 sentences for each of these 10 primary and secondary sources. So this is only for the dissertation and postdoc applications. Similarly, for the dissertation and postdoc applications, you will provide a dissertation abstract. So as part of that abstract, you're going to discuss arguments, methods, main findings, and contributions to the field. And they don't want you to copy and paste from your dissertation. So try your hardest not to do that. There's also supplementary materials that you'll be providing: transcripts, verification of doctoral degree status forms, letters of rec, and host letters. You can find more information about these on the Ford Foundation website, but I'm going to discuss a little in specifics the letters of recommendation. So who's writing your letters? Don't find people who are just big names in your field. Find people who actually know you as a person and kind of understand the Ford Foundation program's goals. Nothing can kill an application more quickly than a lukewarm recommendation from a recognized scholar. All letter writers need to have a PhD or doctorate of education. So Ford accepts 3 to 5 letters. I've heard that if you submit 3 letters, it doesn't look good. So you want to aim for 5 letter writers. 4 is fine, but you want to aim for 5. And these letters have to be good letters. They can't, again, nothing kills an application more quickly than a lukewarm letter of rec. Also, this is also another point where individuals kind of can get weeded out because sometimes the letter writers don't make the deadline on time. And so if your application is incomplete, which a lot of applicants unfortunately have incomplete packets, you will not be reviewed. So make sure that your letter of rec writers know when they need to be turning in their letters on your behalf. And always know that there's multiple deadlines like I described in the beginning. So know when the application deadline is, know when the deadline is for supplemental materials. Make sure you relay this information with your letter of rec writers, again, because your application will not be reviewed if it is incomplete. So here I have navigating the internal process. I'm not sure if Jackie is with us, but if Jackie wants to say a little bit about this.
Yes,
okay.
Sure. Here, give me a second. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Cece, for that presentation. That was great. This is the first time that we're having a grad student do a presentation like this, and I'm happy to see that we have over 20 people attending. So when you're processing a grant at Tufts, whether you're faculty, postdoc, or a student, the important thing to know is that there is support for your efforts, and there are also requirements. Within the institution, we have an Office of Research Administration that helps process the application, that makes sure that the application is compliant. And we also have internal requirements related to submitting the application. So there are steps that you have to take before the application is approved for submission. So I just wanted to give you the link to the Tufts A&S proposal submission guide, as well as Eileen Coombs, who is the director that you would want to contact when you want to submit your grant. And I'll turn it back over to Cece.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Yep.
Okay, with that, let me introduce our panel. So first we have Dr. Lisa Shin, she's my mentor, and she is a professor and director of undergraduate studies at the Department of Psychology. So she mentored me while I was submitting my application for the 2018 predoctoral fellowship. Now we have Dr. Sam Summers. He's the professor and chair of the Department of Psychology. He was the mentor of a student who submitted a 2013 dissertation Ford Fellowship. We also have, these are our Ford Fellows, Shaimar Gonzalez Morales, who is a 2018 pre-doc Ford Fellow, who's from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. She got her 2018 predoctoral Ford Fellow, similar to me, but she also recently received the 2021 dissertation fellowship. So congratulations, Shaimar. And we have Dr. Michael Mandler, who is a 2018, similar to me, predoctoral Ford Fellow. He recently received his PhD from Harvard University. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then we can move on to the panel portion of this workshop. Okay, hi, Michael. Okay, Michael was able to make it. Okay, so now we can, if anyone has questions, feel free to either raise your hand and I will call on you. but I can go ahead and start with the question because I think this one is really important and it's for the faculty. So the first question I have for either Dr. Shin or Dr. Summers. So while we are focusing today on the Ford Fellowship, many students will likely be applying to multiple fellowships during their time as a graduate student. So do you have any suggestions on ways students can make the process easier for their mentors, either organizational strategies or not being afraid to kind of bombard you with emails to remind you to turn in the letter of rec?
I guess I can start. Hi, everyone, Lisa Shin. What I usually encourage students to do is basically to have an Excel sheet that keeps track of all their deadlines for all the different fellowships that they're applying to, and then hopefully share that with me if I'm the mentor or whoever, right, is the mentor, just so that for me as a letter writer and also a mentor more generally, I have an idea of what the timeline is, and then I can make sure I plan accordingly and make sure that I can get the recommendation letters to the respective places on time and that I can support my student. So I guess, yeah, and also start the process early. I mean, Ceci did a great job of showing all the deadlines, right, for just the Ford, but I know that there are other deadlines too. And just starting that process early is always a good idea so that you can just plan more effectively, especially given that most of us are doing probably, 20 other things at any given time, especially during the fall semester, when a lot of these things are due. So I'll stop there, and other people may have other things to say too.
Yeah, so Sam Summer, psychology department, I'll just chime in to say, yeah, make things as easy for your letter writers as possible and mentors as possible. That doesn't seem fair because you're the ones who are doing all the work here. And now we're saying, make other people's lives easier. You are asking for a small favor from the letter writers. Hopefully you're being mentored by people who are quite pleased to write these letters for you. But as Lisa suggested, people get busy, you get busy, faculty get busy. And so having a go-to place where you see the deadlines and can keep track of everything. And for that matter, don't forget, Sam, this is the fellowship from the such and such a foundation where they really want you to emphasize points A, B, and C. That's really helpful. And to turn it around, that's really important for you as applicants also. Ceci made I think, very compellingly laid out how you need to know who you're writing for. It's good to let your mentors know who you're writing for, and you need to know who you're writing for. Is this going to be reviewed by other biologists like you, or is this going to be reviewed by academics across the board, in which case making a very good case for really accessible plain English why this is important from the get-go is important for you, and it's something that it's good for your mentor and letter writers to know too.
I like that idea, Sam, of if you're the student and you have and you want your advisor or letter writer to emphasize something, do let us know. Do let the faculty know. In Ceci's case, Ceci shared with you how she started off her statement. It was like right there, front and center. And so I felt free to comment on that in my letter, and Ceci kind of opened the door to let me do that. And so, I was aware, but there may be cases where, the student hasn't, shared that kind of information with their mentor, and that could be potentially helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have, and I think that also brings a good point, Lisa, that you said. I basically, when I was planning this whole applying for the fellowship, and that's why we're having this workshop now in June, because it does take a very long time to write out each of these materials that we're preparing. And when I was applying for the Ford, I made sure that I had a good rough draft or a good draft of my materials a month before, and then it was kind of just really critiquing everything. So make sure that you are planning way in advance all these different materials you have to get prepared. Okay, I have a question now for the actual Ford Fellows. And so I had mentioned how I thought my application was strong, but how do you think or what do you think your strengths in your applications were? So we'll start with Michael and then we'll go to Shamar.
Hi, first of all, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm in a room with lots and lots of echo.
Okay.
So, no, thank you, Dr. Hinojosa. I've known Ceci since the beginning of the Ford program, and she's great. So thank you for having me. So the question is, how do I think my essay was, what a part of my essay was strong? I used very personal examples of how I volunteered in my undergraduate institution in terms of chemistry outreach to underrepresented minorities. But the point is, very specific examples of what I accomplished, and as well as, you know, a bit about my history. The point is, instead of being idealistic, to be real, to be, you know, realistic, I guess, in the sense of talk about what you've done, talk about who you are and why you want the fellowship. Another thing I did was I kind of used Drake references, like the artist Drake, in terms of describing chemistry principles. And that's something that I did when I was a TA. So talk about how you interface with students, how you relate to students, and do, you know, maybe do it in a way that reaches out to a broader community, you know, whether it be by music or something else. That's something I did, but, you know, everybody is different.
Yeah, awesome. Good things to include in future applications. Thank you, Michael. Shaima.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Hinojosa, for inviting me. And like Michael mentioned, we met in the 2018 conference. So I think one of the strengths of my application, and I echo what Michael said, and even they mention it in their application process, is just mention how you can contribute, or your experience can contribute to the way you teach, or the way you see yourself teaching in the future. So one of the things that I write about, and like all of you guys mentioned, is about your experiences, and that is very important, like how you can move those experiences and help those students in the future. So for my essay, I wrote about how the Hurricane Maria affect my family, and how that unfortunately the house of my family was affected, and how I was struggling at the time to look into whether I stayed in doing my PhD or I have to look for work for supporting my family. And the struggle that many of those the other students face, not only because of hurricane, but because other things like family problems or a health of a loved one, that can drive them out of academia. So talk about those experiences and how mentoring was something that kept me inside, not only mentoring from my parents itself to just like push and just continue, but mentoring from my PIs and mentors that I encounter along the journey.
Yeah, that's great. I think including, I think that's exactly what I'm not a reviewer, but I think the reviewer really appreciates the opportunity to get to know you as an individual, the applicant who's applying. So I think those are great suggestions. So we have some questions from the audience. So this one is, I know that none of us are reviewers, so we may not know this, but I think the faculty may have some good input about this. So what makes a good letter? So what details should be included or avoided? What info can applicants provide to their recommenders to help them write the best letters possible?
I mean, as someone who, not for the Ford Foundation, but for various foundations and organizations, and for that matter, for faculty job applications and other applications and graduate applications, reviews a lot of letters. What I can tell you is that specifics make a big difference. That I think all of us, and you all as well, and Ceci, now as Dr. Hinojosa, you're probably writing some of these letters yourself, and we'll start to have a file of these. We all sort of have a stump speech, like a template of things that we talk about. And I think specifics go a very long way. So I would say, and again, one person's opinion, different mentors, different faculty might say something different. I would always err on the side of assuming that your letter writers could use a gentle memory refresher, or could use a tip or a suggestion. They're free to disregard it if they really want to do their own thing. So, you know, reminding them of the project that you worked on with them at some point, or saying to them, you know, I have some letter writers who are really going to be able to emphasize my research and my publications, but you know about my working with students and my commitment to EDI issues and mentoring underrepresented students from underrepresented groups. You know, please, whatever you see fit to write about, but it would be great if you were able to amplify that aspect of what I've done in your letter. I think that specifics make letters stand out. And so if you need to help provide some of those specifics or you know, sort of jog the memory of people, that's never a bad thing.
Anything more, Lisa?
No, I mean, I agree with that. The more specific, the better. And sometimes what I do is, for example, I don't just say, Ceci is really organized, right? I'll give you an example, a story of something that Ceci did that shows her organizational skills. And so it makes it real, it makes it memorable, right, to the reader. And it's not just one example, right? It's one example to just illustrate it, but basically I suggest that this is, you know, a stable personality trait, and why it's important, you know. So just to give the reader something to grab onto, because when you're reading dozens or hundreds of these letters, they all sort of blend together. And I'm not a reviewer for Ford, but I've been a reviewer for many other things, and I can tell you that that happens.
And I think when I was beginning to write these kind of fellowship applications in general, it would kind of seem that I would be asked by my letters of rec writers sometimes, could you write something for me, and then I can, you know, go back and change a couple things, stuff like that. And at first I was like, well, why do you need me to write it? But it's very helpful to the writer, the letter of rec writer, to remember all the specifics. So don't be, you know, alarmed if someone asks you to do that. I think it's actually a really good idea because it helps make a stronger letter at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think this plays on the larger lesson where, you know, if the organization you're applying to for a fellowship, it asks you very specific questions, be very sure that you address those specific questions. And that's when asking a faculty member who's writing a letter for you could also play into to get them to also address those issues, so that you have another person with a different perspective also addressing the specific things that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Specificity is going to be the key word here. Specificity in rec letters, but also specificity in getting at the actual questions or prompts that were posed, right, by the funding agency.
Yes, and I think that's something very important, because I was looking back at the positive factors that were reviewed when I was creating this PowerPoint, and I did answer like a lot of them without even knowing that I was specifically answering them. So if you make sure to know what your fellowship wants in advance, it'll make your life way more easier. Okay, we have another question about, do you have and this is for the Ford Fellows themselves, what tips would you recommend applicants do the summer before applications are due? So kind of right now. It can be both general or specific ones.
I think is, and it had been echoed before, but I think it's very important that you read those instructions, because it's very clear what they are asking for you. And just make sure that you proofread that, because that's very important. So you write it and just make sure that many people see it. And like, even like after, every time I submit for the application for the the 2 times that actually, this was the 3rd time for the 2020 dissertation one, but I just make like 10 or 12 versions before I submit. So I start like on the summer to actually, when I give them not only I just tell the references, what are the points that I want them to highlight, but I wanted to have at least a draft of the package that they are required, so that they can go back to the package and have an idea. And in also comments of other things like my research that maybe I work with them, but it's been like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, so they might not remember when I'm doing it right now, and they should be able to comment about those things as well. And another thing is, like, if you're not successful on the first trial, don't give up. One of the things, I was not successful on my first trial, and I just sent an email, and I just told them, hey, I would like to sit down with you to discuss what are the things that I was not successful during my application. And they're happy to do so. So you can just sit down with them and discuss all of the things that need to be addressed for the future application.
Yeah, I think that's also good to note that every time you do submit an application, you do receive feedback on your item. So it's kind of like, did you perform excellent or not so well? So you get a little check mark on each of those materials submitted. So you can then go back and see what you did or what needs improvement. Michael, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, every single award that I have won, I had an essay that was proofread and very heavily proofread by tons and tons of people. There is no way I would have won anything, any award, if I hadn't sent my essay to my friends and to my friends and lab mates. So definitely pass those essays along, and do not submit anything that your eyes have seen and just your eyes have seen. So take the time now to write, but also to share your essay with other people. That's my advice.
Great advice. I also want to note that Tufts has a writing center for graduate students. So I took my fellowship there, where a person who was in like English, a graduate student in the English department, looked it over, and she had questions. Like I said in one part of my statement, my research statement, that I want to conduct like good science. And she was like, what does good science even mean? So it's kind of weird. You kind of learn how some people might not understand what it is you're saying, but because you're in the field, you kind of say it all the time. So it's really good to have people, again, especially for the Ford Fellowship, people who are outside your field, to read your materials thoroughly. There's a question, is there an interview of the applicant? No, there is not an interview of the applicant. So usually for the pre-doctoral, I think it varies from year to year, but around 60 individuals are chosen, and then it kind of just decreases. But it's all based on the application that you provided. There's no interview part of the application process. Okay, are there any other questions from the audience? If not, we can go back because there's one more slide I want to show that Donna can hopefully have some input on. Okay, let me go back. Okay, Donna, did you want to say something about this?
Sure. And thank you very much for inviting me today. And I cannot agree with what everyone said more strongly, specifically about the starting early, specifically about getting feedback. And also, I apologize. Shamar, I think you mentioned that you applied and you applied and you applied. I've been at Tufts now for 8 years, and I've worked with a faculty member who shall remain nameless, who has joked that they could wallpaper their inside of their bathroom with all of the rejection letters that they've received over the years. And then when they received their acceptance award letter, they got it framed and put it right up in their bathroom. So, I mean, it's true. You really have to, this is something that it's an iterative process. You're along a very long path in your career. So there are going to be many different points along the way in which you're going to be writing these grants and applications. I specifically work with institutional funders, corporations and foundations. Lisa mentioned federal opportunities, which are also quite significant, and the federal applications are significant. So just wanted to reinforce what everyone says and what Jackie said, which is Tufts is here to help you. Like Cece said, that there are people in the English department who can help. Eileen Coombs and her team with arts and sciences, myself. There's actually another research development department that works with faculty and graduate students for federal opportunities. So we are here to help you and help you be as successful as you can be. So here are just a couple of 4 examples of other fellowships that target underrepresented scholars in the Academy, the Institute for Citizens and Scholars, which is formerly the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship, the American Association of University Women, the Point Foundation, the Soros Fellowships for first gen and new immigrants. And I actually, in my Google search, I found this website, northwestern.edu fellowships, that has an entire list of all sorts of different fellowships. So it's not quite stealing because they're open to everyone, but please go and harvest and use the information that they've accumulated so that you might be able to find a number of opportunities that you might be able to apply for to get funding and to advance your careers. And I'm also happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Stop sharing the screen. So is there any last minute questions at all? You can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand. Javier.
Yeah, hi, I had a quick question about how far we should go back. I'm a returning student to academia, so I've been doing stuff for a very long time. Should I go back to when I was in my 20s and working at community centers, or should I look at the last 5 years and think about what I've been doing when I returned to academia, or should I look at, or should I, how do I structure a longer history?
Shaimar, do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure, because I did my bachelor, I did my master, then I worked a little bit before even starting the PhD. So I totally understand what you're saying. So one of the things that I did is when you're talking about research productivity, is just make sure that those experiences that you're listed are experiences that will fit what you're going to do in terms of your research plan. Because obviously I didn't list all my experience. I started in plant biotechnology. That doesn't have anything to do with what I was been doing in the biomedical sciences. So I didn't mention those, but I did focus on the ones that were pertain to what I was studying. And in terms of your essay, I think it's what you are, what you want to highlight. In my essay for the predoctoral, I highlight mentoring and how mentoring is important for the success of the students. In my essay of dissertation fellowship, I highlight different things that we don't talk about when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of those is just talking about the importance of having mentoring specific for a person with disabilities, and how it's important that we not only do what we have to do in our institutions in terms of just, we are going to do these, create these environments and our experience transferred through the students, but also be able to give back to the community that we belong to. And that is very important. So it depends on how you focus, because for the dissertation, I just focus in the 2 years, like what I did in those 2 years or what I did in that year. So it not necessarily is that you have to go back, it's just what you wanted to talk about. And based on that, then you just decide what are you going to use from your experience to then highlight those things and make a strong essay.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
I will add too, there is a page limit for each essay. So exactly like Hashamar is saying, like you have to make sure that you're going into it thinking what you want to highlight for that specific application that you're applying to, just because there's a page limit. So if only you could, say your life story, but unfortunately you can't. I think it's a 2-page maximum for the personal statement. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, doesn't seem like it. Oh yes, Jessica.
Hi, thank you. This is very helpful and well done you, Javier. I'm coming back to this myself. So thank you for that. Let's see. So I'm always interested in trying to help other grad students like me who are not quite the normal. But if there's one particular department or person that I can not only ask for help, like in grant writing or something, but also in sharing the information with my cohort, who, and as you understand, we're already admittedly way overloaded. Who's the best place, or where's the best place to start asking for help with grant writing or preparation for grant writing? What do you suggest?
Donna, is there like a place at Tufts specifically?
So a couple different places you can start, Jessica. Like I said, you can start with my office, and you can start with me and my contact information. I'll add it to the chat box. And in terms of, we can help provide feedback or thoughts. Again, as a lot of people have said, you really want a community to help you. I think Michael was one that said, you never want to send it out if only you've looked at it. Like, you start with me, and then you also work with your mentor and you work with someone else. I was not familiar with the department in the graduate school that can help with this, but possibly Jackie, do you?
So usually when a graduate student is writing a grant, your first and primary source of support is your department, your advisor. There are a variety of workshops that are available. So for example, if you're interested in applying for a federal grant, NIH grants, even on the Boston campus, there are training opportunities in grant writing that you can actually, you can participate in. So the Tufts CTSI, you can Google them. They have a variety of training workshops depending on what kind of grant that you want to apply. The other thing I suggest is the federal government makes a lot of information available, including who's received the award. So you can actually find out who received the award previously. It could be a colleague or another student here at Tufts, and you can talk to them about what the process was like. And in some instances, people might even be willing to share their funded grant application with you so that you can get an idea of what that looks like. In terms of grant writing, there isn't an office specific for grant writing or editing services or anything like that for graduate students. So I would say your best bet is within the department or among your colleagues.
Thank you so much, Jackie and Donna. Okay, so just being cognizant of the time, I want to thank our panelists for being here today and for providing all of the feedback and to answering all of our questions. So thank you, Michael, Shamir, Dr. Shin, and Dr. Summers. And thank you all for being here today. I hope it was helpful, but please contact me if you have any more questions. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.